This is The Good Pod Guide, a podcast where I, Lauren Windle, journalist and podcast mega fan, introduce you to new podcasts you won't want to miss, as well as reminding you about some big name fan favourites. So I'm drinking out of a mug today which says on it, I woke up like this. And anyone who's opted to watch the visual rather than just listen to the audio can confirm that that's highly believable today. The absolute bloody state of me. Apologies for that. Right, so anyone who has given me a little Google or looked me up online will know that I am a Christian. So I go to church, blah, blah, blah. This is not about to turn into a preach. I am not that guy at Oxford Street with the megaphone. Does anyone remember him? Anyone from London? If you're not a sinner, you're a winner. And all the sinners go to hell and all the winners go to heaven. I definitely remember that being a big feature of my childhood when I went up to Topshop. Anyway, that's not what this is. So yay for us. But there are some really weird things that you don't know about until you turn up in a church. I only started going when I was like 25. So there's quite a lot that's like weird Christian subculture that I wasn't aware of, like when you're supposed to sit down and stand up and repeat stuff back. And then with most prayers, like you say your prayer, you know, as a sort of internal solitary act, keeping your eyes closed. But then there's a prayer called the grace, which is actually maybe a blessing and not a prayer. I should probably look that up. But you have to do that making eye contact with everyone, which really threw me off. And then at first I was like, oh, I'm not doing a very good job of this. So I really overcompensated and opened my eyes really wide and made like forceful eye contact with the people around me. So I probably looked a bit crazed. Anyway, as if normal church culture isn't tough enough to get your head around, there's also then the Bible, and that's like another level. But I think what I didn't realize before I started going to church was it's not just like a set of rules or moral standards or even like fantasy style stories about like giant boats and miracle strength hair. It's this like crazy journey of people making terrible decisions and God having to relentlessly bail them out. And it's like so graphic, like more graphic than Game of Thrones empires. So all of that said, we're going to talk today about the podcast Vacation Bible Story. So this is a podcast that covers a portion of the Bible each episode, and they're going to go through in order. So strap yourselves in because that is going to take a really long time. Each episode, the hosts analyze the text and discuss both their personal thoughts and experiences that they've had with the stories that they've read. The analysis is usually pretty humorous rather than theological. So if you're looking for something that's like real in-depth, then maybe, you know, go for an actual sort of Christian podcast. This is more like colloquial chat. Yeah, it's super informal, I think. It's hosted by a married couple, Jason Kirk, who is a sports journalist and, interestingly, an atheist, and also Emma Kirk, a Christian and a youth pastor. So it's a great balance between the two different positions and approaches. It's a pretty new podcast with only sort of 13-hour-long episodes. Although, as I said, if they're going to go for the whole Bible, we're in for a long ride, guys. I was worried that I was just going to find this pure blasphemy. But from what I've heard, it's not. I didn't agree with everything that they said, though, but that's fine. I'm not the arbiter of Christian conversation. It is interesting, and I appreciate the different perspectives so much. It's so real. And it kind of feels like me chatting to a mate who doesn't believe in God at the pub, which is not an unheard of occurrence. Jason was raised in church, so he still does have an understanding of the traditions and is respectful of them, even if he doesn't share his wife's faith. And it's also just nice to hear someone talk about religion in an easygoing, accessible way. It's not preachy, it's not weird, it's not shouting at people with a megaphone at Oxford Circus, and it's not pretending that everything to do with the church is perfect, because it's definitely not. In the next episode, I absolutely freak myself out talking about some of the weird and wonderful urban myths to come out of Japan, thanks to podcast Uncanny Japan. You can get more info on the show online, www.goodpodguide.com. And you can also follow us at Good Pod Guide on Instagram and Twitter.